what I have come to love and appreciate about our faith is that it really is an adult kind of faith that looks at really things hard at life. And oftentimes we have a very kind of shallow approach to it. Because here we're celebrating the Christmas celebration, right? The coming of Christ. And we all know that if we're going to celebrate, it's all happy feelings, right? It's all wonderful feelings. And if we're going to celebrate for 3 days, like a wedding, it's always a celebration. It's always this great kind of happy feelings for 4 days when we have that. But today, we celebrated the birth of Christ yesterday. We're going to continue today. And the very next celebration after the birth of Christ is the first martyr. All of a sudden now is recognizing that St. Stephen being the first martyr, that the coming of Christ has huge consequences for the world. The coming of something good is a wonderful thing, but it is going to bring about death as well. That people will be sacrificed because of that. And I think that is sort of the implications of Christ's coming. Certainly we get to heaven, but how are we going to get to heaven? By the way of imitating Christ, which St. Stephen does, right? Because here he is preaching the gospel. All of a sudden we're at the end. This is in the Acts of the Apostles, after the death and resurrection of Jesus. And he's preaching the gospel, and they stone him to death. And what does he do? He imitates Christ. Imitates Christ by praying for his persecutors. This is the cost of him coming. Stop praying now. This is now we pray for our enemies. We pray for the people we don't like. That's what we do as Catholics. That's what we do as followers of Christ. Right? And that's the implication of him coming. And then he says, of course, Jesus' words at the cross, into your hands I commend my spirit, Father, into your hands. That's who we are. The coming of Christ brought that attitude here to evil, to death, is that, we put our hands into God's hands, our soul into God's hands. And then tomorrow, which I won't be here, but they'll be preaching tomorrow, right? It's going to be John the Evangelist. So the preaching of the gospel is the result of Christ's coming. Martyrdom, preaching of the gospel. Then Saturday, for those who go to Mass on Saturday, what does the next feast of the church? The Holy Souls, the killing of all of the children under the age of 2, because Herod found out that he was, tricked by the Magi or whatever, and then he is a fear of another king coming. So what he does, and so the consequences of Christ coming is not just like happy, kind of like, isn't this great? There are worldwide, there are huge consequences to coming, right? And when I think of the holy souls who were martyred, the sort of the first children, right? Because all these are children under the age of 2, right? That's why Jesus has to flee to Egypt, right? So to be protected from that experience shows even then the seriousness of this. But its connection with the Old Testament. So we have martyrdom as looming high after the birth of Jesus, the proclamation of the gospel with the feast day of St. John the Baptist, and then the martyrdom of the holy souls, all of the infants that were born, the holy innocents as we call them, right, as a result of Jesus, which is the connection to the Old Testament and the Exodus, that we had to deal with. So I love the way the church kind of says, okay, we're going to celebrate Christmas, and we're not just going to keep singing, happy songs. We are going to remember the consequences of Christ's coming, right? And only I think people with mature faith can begin to appreciate that, because those who I think with a kind of shallow faith say, that's really kind of really bad feelings associated with the coming of Christmas. Why does the church do that? Is it kind of sick or something by kind of even if it can't celebrate for 8 days? Let's say, yes, no, it is celebrating holy souls. It's celebrating the proclamation of the gospel, and it's celebrating the martyrdom that is the result of standing up for good in this face sometimes of evil. May we find courage really in that and see the deeper meaning of what these next 3 days are going to be celebrated in the church in the octave of Christmas.